Okay, so this brings me to my role in the specialist model. So obviously it is true that I put a lot of burden on the students who act as specialists. Of course, they don't operate in a vacuum because I have already chosen the topic, I have already chosen the course schedule, I have already chosen the texts and the foci of each lesson. Now, during the lesson itself, I try to hold back and give the specialists space. Obviously, if I see them struggle, I will help. That is clear. I will also traditionally interfere, and this is where these 10 minutes come in that I tell the specialists to sort of reserve for me. I will step in when there's a factual error. So when they're off a date by a century, I can't let that pass. I mean, I have to say, well, maybe it's the 18th century, not the 19th, something like this, yeah? Or if there is a broader context to a particular question that is beyond what I think my specialists know, because of course I am familiar with their preparation process through the prep meeting and the prep mail. So I have a vague idea of what they're covering. And if there's something that just happens to be super important for this question, but off the topic itself, then I might ask the specialist to allow me just one footnote, and I open that context and try and close it again pretty quickly and hand back to the specialist. Now, sometimes I have to admit, passion just runs away with me. It's incredibly difficult, especially if it's going well, to not participate, because it's fun. It's rolling, everybody is participating. I want to play as well. So sometimes I lose a little bit of control and I tend to not hand over quickly enough. And I warn my specialists about this. This is just a question of temperament. This is who I am. So I warn them and I tell them, you have my full permission to just tell me to shut up. In class, I won't mind. I know it's an authority problem because the specialists have been invested with the authority over that lesson, but of course it's clear that I am the teacher, and once I say something, they will be overruled. But I do tell them, please don't hesitate, just tell me to, and I promise I will shut up. I will pass back to you. Having said that, it's also important that they learn to wrest back the word. Now, we have two types of students in the humanities. A large chunk of our students will be teachers. 85% of my students will be future teachers. Now, for them, the specialist model is what I hope covers at least a part of the challenges they will be facing, how to motivate people, how to make them prepare well, how to engage them in a debate, and also how to wrest back the word. Because if they're going to face a bunch of 15-year-olds, they're not going to be as respectful as me and aware of their own, tendency to step over borders. So I want my students to be ready for that. So I tell them, look at it that way. It's good preparation for wresting away the word from a bunch of unruly 15-year-olds. Practice with me. The other group will not be teachers. And especially in literature and cultural studies, very often these students have no clear image of where they're going to go in their professional lives, what they're going to do, because we provide them with not a precise Ausbildung, with an education for a particular job. Instead, we provide them with skills. And these skills, I point that out to my students. These skills are extremely useful in whoever you meet as a boss, in whatever field you choose. And one of these skills is to guide a debate, and another is to make sure that your authority as the person who guides the debate will not be easily taken away from you. So again, practice keeping the reins in your hands. Now, as I said, I see my role as the teacher of a course that works according to the specialist model. A lot of energy goes into the preparation phase, and a lot of my time goes into the preparation phase. So I'd say I spend typically half an hour to 45 minutes with the specialists every week before class, just to be sure they feel well-oriented, that they feel they know what I want them to do, what I want them not to do, as in talk all the time. And this is typically also something where I have to interfere. When I feel a specialist has forgotten that his or her job is to actually make the others talk and starts giving a monologue, then I have to step in and say, 5 minutes, and the only person who's talked is you? Do we have a question? So this would be also my role, to ensure to protect the actual concept behind the specialist model. Obviously, one of the most important tasks is at the beginning of term, explaining myself, explaining why I do it this way, and also build an atmosphere in which everybody feels they can contribute, and where it's also clear that not contributing at all is simply not an option in a course like this. And obviously, there are people who are bubbly extroverts who will always talk and enjoy it and love it, and that's great, and it's important to have people like that in class. Every specialist will tell you that this is the backbone, because you know after a few weeks I can rely on these 3 people in class. But there are also people who are a little bit shy or a little bit insecure about their English, who might find it more difficult, or who feel more comfortable, let's say, feel more comfortable in their passivity. There's also a gender aspect to this problem that we have 85% women anyway, but usually the very shy ones tend to be women rather than men. And especially for women, this is just the feminist in me, my female students have to learn that it's important that they get the confidence of taking the word and speaking in public. And university is the moment when they can practice that. Because once they're out in the world and they haven't learned that, it will be harder, because they will meet more aggressive people than in a class of mine, where I can control the atmosphere, or I established the atmosphere, and I put a lot of energy in making it clear that I won't tolerate aggressive behavior in my class. So putting someone down, you're getting a problem with me. Once that is clear, I talk to my specialists about their ideas of how can you phrase your question in a way that is inviting to someone who's maybe a little shy. Also, it might mean you, as specialist, you don't always pounce on the first person who sticks up his or her hand. You have the authority to say, and wait another 3 seconds until maybe the slightly more shy person has formulated her or his thoughts in their heads and are able and willing to share. So as the course progresses, the specialist's challenges also change. So for example, the further along we are in the term, the more important is that the specialists have in their view and in their memory what we've already done, trying to link lessons to earlier lessons. And those who tend to be a little bit shy can more easily be invited to comment on something we already covered, rather than thinking on their feet and sharing an idea that is fresh now. So it's target these questions to the persons in the room who might not be the quickest to think about something new, but who usually are very well prepared on what has already happened. So this is also part of my role. And this building of the atmosphere, it's quite challenging because it has to start right away from the very first minute. So this is why I dedicate a whole lesson on explaining the plan and the tasks and trying to be very clear about why I do it that way and what that entails in terms of expectations and challenges and the help that is available.